Everything you need to know in order to create amazing melodies every single time. That's what I'm gonna show you here today. I've made 2 very large melody tutorials here on YouTube, and it's actually been 3 years since I've made some of those videos. But today, I have a lot of great new information to share with you. And so whether you're a beginner or you've been making beats for a while, there's going to be something in this video that's going to help you out. So let's get straight into it. I'm actually going to break this up into a bunch of different sections. And so if you feel like you know the stuff at the beginning, each section is going to kind of get a little bit more complicated as the video progresses. So first up, we're actually not starting with melody, we're starting with chords. Now, chords are kind of what you can use to build your melody off of. It's kind of like the foundation of everything. But first up, because we are in the future at this point in FL, let's say you want to make, a nice little chord progression. You can just go to your piano roll, go right here, go down to Tools, and go to Generate Chord Progression, and just like that. You can have it generate you tons of different chord progressions. You can change the octave you want to be in, so this will be a little bit deeper of a sound. You can go more adventurous. But if you're, a purist, you want to kind of create something that feels like you're doing a little bit more of the work, you can create a little chord progression. Now, the simplest way to create a chord progression, or you can create a chord progression yourself that sounds something like this. Which is how I like to do it typically, as I'm able to kind of have more direct involvement in creating the emotion or whatever. But to build something like this, which might seem complicated to some people, it's really simple actually. First thing you do is just pick out 4 notes that sound good together on their own. So like for the example, sounds pretty good. Now that I'm listening to it, these first 3 notes sound like Thinking About You by Frank Ocean. And then it seems like a change right there. Then from here, what you can do is just highlight everything. So Control A or Command A or Alt A. Then you just grab this holding Shift and you just move this up 7. So just hold Shift and move over your arrow up 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you've built essentially the bottom and the top of a chord. Now the next thing you would do here is you'd either place a note right here. So this is basically 3 spots up from the bottom, or 4. Now, typically what's going to sound good is if you can line up some notes, it's probably going to sound good. So like these 2 chords right here, guarantee you they're going to sound good. See? And then over here, nothing lines up, so you kind of got to guess, or if you just have been doing this long enough, you'll know which sounds good. So that's going to sound good right here. And then right here, because this lines up with that note over there. So it doesn't have to be the note right next to it. If it lines up to a note just on here at all, it'll probably sound good, like this G over here sounds good. So perfect. So now you got a nice little bass. Now before we move on to make these a little bit more complex of chords, you don't even need to do 4 chords. You could literally do 2 chords and it'll probably sound pretty good. We just loop this. Or you could do 3 chords, so let's get rid of this chord. And just make this last one a little bit longer. Boom. So basically, if you have a chord like this, you can make like a bunch of different variations of a chord progression just out of this if you want. Now, if we want to make this a little bit more complex and make it sound more full, essentially what you'll be doing is you either go up 2 or 3 spaces here, make it sound pretty cool. So that sounds nice. Technically, you can even go up 1. It sounds a little bit more dramatic. So if you even just go up 1 on a lot of these chords, it might sound kind of dramatic. Let's give it a listen. Kind of more like sad and whatnot. Now instead we move the notes up 2 or 3. Let's line this one up because those line up, and we could keep that there, or we could just move this up like right here. Line up because that lines up over there. Oh, that one sounds weird. like that much, let's try a line right here. And I know this note's gonna sound good because this F is already in this chord progression right here. Now, if we want to spice up this chord progression a little bit, there's a few things that we can do. First, if you want to make it sound more full, and I usually don't do this to be honest, because I'll usually add like a bass line or 808, and then this usually gets in the way, but I'll show it to you just because. You just do that right there, duplicate this. You can do that, make them sound a little bit more full. But then the really cool stuff is you can add some rhythm to your chords. So a really simple way to do that is, let's just use the cut tool right here, so this little razor, and then we're gonna just on the grid add some chops. So like maybe right there, right there. Which is a little bit more interesting than. Or you could even do something a little bit crazier like this. Now, to make it even more interesting, one thing that you could do is start varying the lengths of these chords a bit. So, for example, let's make this chord a little bit shorter, and then maybe this one a little bit longer. And you want to make sure you do this in a pattern. So if we did this right here, probably want to do it over here as well. Let's do this right here. And actually, let's just leave no sound right here. And I think that's what we should do over here too. Sometimes like just not adding a sound versus trying to fill up every little inch of this grid right here is actually a lot more helpful, because the biggest contrast when it comes to sound is no sound. I know, it's deep. But I mean, it makes it a little bit of a moment right there. And then last but not least, and FL makes this very easy now, if you're not playing on like a, MIDI keyboard like this, which I definitely recommend if you can get one, because you're gonna think of totally different rhythms, ideas, melodies, if you kind of learn how to play this and feel things out a little bit more. But if you don't have that, what you can do is go up here, go to Tools, and then go to Humanize. And essentially, this is going to make it feel more like somebody's actually like playing a keyboard or a synth, because when you play a keyboard or a synth, unless you're a robot, you're not pressing every note down at the exact same time. You're not, making the notes this close together. Most likely, there's gonna be a little bit bigger gaps in it than, let's say this. See, everything's perfect right here. But if we go to Humanize, then you'll see different velocity of the keys, different like hold lengths for each note, and it just makes it sound a lot more realistic. Versus. But really, it depends on the type of music you're making, because some people like a more robotic sound, especially in today's day and age. I personally like to humanize stuff though. Now, the next thing you can do is you can do what's called transposing. And essentially what that is we can take these notes within this chord right here. And if we just do Command up, we can move them up here. So this chord's gonna sound a bit more open, a bit more wide and like higher pitched, but it's still playing the same chord. It's just certain notes are moved up or down an octave. Versus. And this comes in most handy when you're just trying to get everything to be a little bit closer together. So that wouldn't work because that note's right here. But I could, for example, do something like this. See what I mean? Endless possibilities. Next up, we have layering. And this is where people start to make things either sound very cool or, make it sound like ass. So I'm gonna try to help you out here. Make it very simple. So first key kind of is sound selection. So picking out what sound goes well with your first sounds. And all these sounds that I'm using here today are from my Serum pack. And this is a synth called Dusty. And so you can give this a listen. So if you listen to that sound, it's like kind of airy and soft. And so there's a few kind of ways you could, select a sound to go with it. You could either go for a sound that has a bunch of elements that this sound doesn't have, like maybe like something that has like kind of like a pluck sound, or you could look for something that's relatively similar but kind of just enhances the sound. And I think what I want to do here, at least first, because I'm gonna show you all the options, is just look for a sound that kind of enhances things. So we got this other synth right here, and let me play that on its own. Also from the pack is fire sound. So take it off, fire. But if we combine them together, now let's say I want to add a sound that adds kind of like a totally new dimension to it. That's what I'm going to do right here. So we have a sound called pluck, and here's how it sounds over it. Totally different vibe. And another easy way to do that, kind of really change things up, is you could add an ARP, for example. So I just got this ARP sound called Circus, and let's just layer it over both of these sounds. And for each of these, all I'm doing is just copying over the exact same chords. That's how I'm layering it. Now if we add something like an ARP, again, gives it a totally different vibe. Now, maybe you don't want to make things that complex. Maybe you want to make it a little bit more, I don't know, mysterious, or just, very textured. One thing you can do is, rather than copying over all the chords here like we did, is you could just copy over part of the chords. So let's give this a listen right here. And this is a sound called Stories You Tell from the pack. So that's just to emphasize that part right there. You could even do it where it's like, and then if you wanted to, another thing you could do, rather than just have it hit in a specific part, is you could combine different rhythms. So we got this right here, which has this, chopped up rhythm, and then we've just got this basic progression right here. So let's give that a listen. So just an option. Now another thing you could do is kind of create textures with your chords. So let's just take this right here, where it just comes in right there. And I just realized I had this delay on already, but you could add a delay and really crank it up so it's more textured of a sound. That doesn't sound that cool, if I'm being honest, but for some stuff it can sound really cool. Maybe if we had like more of like a pluck sound or something. Another thing you could do is use something like fragments. Another good plugin for something like this would be like Portal. You could probably also use Fruity Granulizer as well, which might be a little bit more challenging, but that's a really easy way to do it. My favorite way to kind of add like textures as layering. So for example, you could take like a city sound and chop it in a way where it like kind of resets and repeats, like I have right here. So this is just city sound in the chords. So that's an option. You can do something like that, or you can have the sound play all the way through, and now it's got like a forest sound. And this just kind of adds the atmosphere. It almost like creates like a story or a scene really with your music when you do this. And then another cool thing, if you want things to sound more vintage, is you can just add like a vinyl crackle or whatever, and also turn that down. And now this looks like, this will sound like more like a vintage kind of a synth, or like something sampled off a record. Which is also cool. Now I do want to show you one really cool thing that you can do for your chords, but it's one important thing I have to say. So every sound that I've been using in this video, outside of like these samples right here and whatnot, are all from my new pack. This pack has pretty much all of the essentials you need to create great sounding melodies, as well as I already added a bunch of effects to the sound. So at least for me personally, I hate having to add like 6 or 7 effects to make a sound good and sound cool and unique. So I did that with Serum already, so you don't have to. And the best part though is because I'm releasing it and you're watching this video, I'm going to give you a very big discount. Just type in the code on my website and enjoy. All right, now back to the video. Now this is one of the coolest things you can do. I learned this, I don't know, like maybe like a year ago or something like that. I love doing it. So basically what you're going to do is take all of your different layered chord sounds. So in this case, I have these 3 sounds right here. I've got an arp and then these other 2 synths, which all together sound like this. Which sounds cool, but if we convert them each into an audio file, and to do that, you just have to go in, mute them one by one, and put them right over here, and then just highlight and just do Command Option C, and just make sure to have all these settings, and it'll turn it into an audio file. And do that for each of your sounds. I know it's tedious, but trust me, it's worth it. And then all you have to do here is chop them up a little bit. So I just use this razor tool again, and I'm just doing on every beat. And then you're just gonna wanna go, you can press T as a shortcut, or just click on that right here, and just mute certain parts of this. So this is the ARP, so I'm gonna mute it right there. And then you just make sure to do this in some sort of a pattern. You're probably gonna have to play around with it a little bit, but for example, like listen to this. Can't hear anything, my bad. Like for example, listen to this. It's like you can get really crazy sounds doing this. You change it up a little bit, do something like this. So really endless possibilities. All right, now on to the actual melody. And to be honest, I've been waiting for this part the entire time of this video, because recently I created probably my favorite melody of all time. Like after producing for, I don't know, probably almost like 10 years now. Probably more like 8. My favorite melody I've ever made, and so I want to show you guys how I made it, so hopefully that'll spark some ideas for you. But first, let's talk some of the basics. So first thing, the easiest way to create a decent sounding melody is to keep things very simple. And so to get started here, one of the things you can do is you can take the ends of your chords. You got a blade tool, chop things up a little bit, maybe move things up or down. So we can do something like maybe like this, on just a couple of notes. You can add a nice little melody to your chord, or embellishment, or whatever you want to call it. Now, next thing you can do, if we want to level up a little bit, is we can add a melody over top of these chords right here. And the easiest thing to do is, see all these notes that we're using in all these chords? Try those notes, because guaranteed they're going to sound good over your chords, like without a doubt. So for example, we start right here, and let's start with G. And it'll also be in here, and there's also D, so this will sound fine. Honestly, probably copy this, and it'll probably sound good. That B sounds off though, so let's use the A from right here. If you notice something right here, there's a little bit of tension because these notes aren't actually used in the chords right here, but they're in the scale. And so that's a good way to add some tension. Like this G sounds way different than it does in this chord right here. I'm just play the chord alone. Like that just sounds like everything's groovy. I'm add that to my vocabulary. It's a cool word. But this right here sounds very different. Sounds like, I don't know, something's going down. I don't know what, but I'll be there. And kind of indirectly what I did here was I built this melody using the same sound that I already had. So what you could do, well, first let's drop that right here. You can just copy all these notes over, put them into a new sound. For example, we use this lead right here, and bam. And I don't know why, sometimes it's just easier to do it this way versus looking for a sound. So don't freak out, because we're you're gonna be exiting FL, as I use Ableton a lot now, but this is important. So we go over to Ableton, or the dark side for some FL users. You're gonna find this little melody right here, my latest song off the album. Okay, so first, that just gets me hyped anytime I hear it still. So to create this, there's a few things, and this will help you in your melody creation. First, have a good sound. That sound from my pack that I made, it's called Casablanca, is fire, all right? It's a great sound. And so that does some of the work for you. But then the next thing that's really important is repetition. If you look here, and even the melody I created before that I showed you, this is playing the same notes over and over again, and then at the end it kind of changes. But they're slightly different lengths, which gives it kind of a different feeling. But then if you look over here, it looks like I'm repeating everything, but at the end, I just flip these last two notes. And I can't tell you, that works every single time. And that's like a big, like little melody hack, is just flipping those last two notes around makes a really big difference. Fire. Now next thing you can do to really make your melody sound cool and unique and interesting is use either your own vocals, so if you can sing, or actually you don't even need to be able to sing at all, really. You can use AI, or you can use autotune or whatever, lots of reverb, lots of delay. You can kind of just hum over your stuff, or just mumble words or whatever, and you can create some really cool stuff. But if you don't want to do that, one thing you can do that's really easy is just get some sort of a vocal sample, and just take that vocal sample, chop it up a little bit, and the key here is you want to make sure you're in the same key as your beat is in, or your chords or your melody are in, and you should be able to tell, because it'll sound terrible. But one thing you can do is you can go to like tunebat.com and you can drag in what you made, and then you can find out the key there. But yeah, essentially vocals are great because they're familiar, and I think they make everything sound good. So here's just some little vocals I chopped up. Now, another thing you could do that's technically not making your melody, but it can enhance things a lot, is adding a nice little bass line. So I'm just gonna do that right here. Got a lot of cool bass lines in this pack. This one has some like extra movement. So really all you need to do for that is pick the bottom note of each of your chords, and it should sound pretty good. Next, if we move it over to something like this, let's see. Different sound, or if you want, kind of create like some nice movement in your bass. One thing I like to do is towards the end, maybe shorten them a little bit, and on a few of them, I'll just pick out some notes within the chord. So we can do like something like this, then over here, bam, bam. Check out the pack. Discount code is CODE again. And if you like the song I showed you, feel free to check that out as well. But I will see you soon. Peace.